The Soviets will be bringing a very understrength T-72 tank battalion to this fight. In the center there you see the tank battalion commander. Then we have 2 companies minus of T-72 tanks, 4 tanks in each of those. Back in the left you see the BMP-2 company. That is the one that cost a total 8 points, the smallest of the 3 options that you get, no additions to them. And lastly, we have 2 BMP-2 scouts that form the 4th unit for the Soviets. 50 points, ready to take on the American oppressors. For their part, the Americans pack a lot of firepower in their 50-point list. As a mechanized infantry company, right in the center you see the company commander with his 113. You have the 2 platoons on the left having 4 113s, 4 fire teams, and then 3 Dragon missile teams. And on the right is the smaller of the platoons with 3 113s. In the back you have 3 M109 howitzers. They are loaded with copperhead ammunition. And on the right there you have the observer for that particular artillery platoon. You have 2 Cobra attack helicopters on the left, and then in the very front you have the pride and joy of the American forces. That is 3 M1 battle tanks ready to take the fight to this Red Army. The Americans and Soviets have deployed on the board for this encounter mission. Soviet objectives are placed here next to the road network and in this clearing between these 2 clumps of trees. As you can see, we have a village in the center with a nice town square right there with a bunch of trees. We have some cornfields around the village area, along with an open mud field on the far side where the Soviets are at. Small river with some hills and a river crossing there on the left. Okay, so the Americans have placed 2 units on the board. The first is their heavy infantry platoon, and so there you have 4 113s hanging out in the cornfield, with the American infantry sitting here on the left in the clump of trees mostly, with Dragon missile teams eyeing up the main avenue approach on the right, and also the clearing on the left. Behind them you have the force commander, the battalion commander, with his 113. Observer in this clump of trees, and then the 109 howitzers are hiding behind there. They have ranged in directly in the choke point in the center here. Across the board from them are the Soviets. We have 1 T-72 company, and on the far left there is the battalion commander providing leadership and support to them. The BMP-2s that have brought the infantry to the battle, the infantry have dismounted. They're controlling both the objectives right now, and the BMPs are ready to advance rapidly down the road. We have rolled. The Soviets will be taking the first turn. Reserves will not be coming onto the board until, at the very earliest, turn 3. Now it's worth noting the American reserves consist of their 3 M1 tanks, their Cobra helicopters, and the 2nd Infantry Platoon, which is the lighter of the 2 platoons. While the Soviet reserves, we have the reconnaissance platoon with the BMP-2s and also a T-72 tank company minus. So we're ready to begin with the Soviets on turn 1 in this encounter mission. The Soviets have begun their cautious move forward with the tank company and battalion commander moving on the right flank a total of 10 inches. So they will be able to shoot normally. Of course, this is a meeting engagement, so they were going to have to shoot as if they moved regardless. So no harm in moving them. The BMP-2s also have moved forward. Soviet infantry spent the turn digging in, and despite it needing a 5, they rolled a 6. So now the Soviet platoon of infantry is in foxholes, ready for the inevitable American attack to come. They are holding their ground well as we move into the shooting phase next. The Soviet BMPs opened fire on the American 113s with the 2 front vehicles able to see and shoot at them. Unfortunately, with their 4 shots on the move, were not able to land a single hit. The Soviet tanks did fare better. The 3 shooting at the American infantry failed to hit, but one of the 2 slewed their turrets right over there, managed to sight in the American observer in the woods, roll in that lucky 6 to hit it, and punching straight through the American armor. That has effectively nullified the copperheads that were loaded onto the 109s before the battle started. They are not going to be able to shoot them without an observer with a laser sight. So, while the Soviets did not kill very many forces this turn, the one they killed will certainly count. So we'll see how the Americans counter in their turn 1. Turn 1, the Americans have made their cautious opening move, moving 3 of the 4 113s out of this cornfield. The other one getting bogged down there in order to have line of sight to those BMPs. And they've been joined by the battalion commanders, 113 as well, while everyone else has stayed in place where they're currently at. I think those howitzers are probably going to be firing smoke in order to head off those T-72s. So, we'll be back after the American shooting coming up next. The American 109 platoon was the first to open fire this round of shooting, laying down a smoke screen, effectively cutting off the right side of the battlefield from those T-72s, unless they go through that clump of trees with a terrain test. That is a difficult proposition for the Soviets, so they'll probably pass on that. That was called in by the American platoon leader right there, using the pre-planned target that was set up before the game began. The 2 Dragon missile teams, seen right here, managed to land 2 solid hits against the T-72s on the left, but both T-72s made their armor saves, so no damage done there. On the right, the gamble to bring out the 113s paid off a bit as the combined fire managed to bail out one of the BMPs that failed its armor save, but the Americans failed their firepower check, but it is bailed out, while this Dragon missile team managed to destroy a BMP outright. So it's down to 2 vehicles left in good order and 1 bailed out. We'll see if that has an effect as we go on to the Soviet turn 2. During the Soviet turn 2 starting step, the BMP crew rolled a 2, so they will not be getting back into their fighting vehicle this turn. So the 113s have done a job there, taking out a quarter of the Soviets' firepower for this turn. We'll move on to the movement phase next. Soviet turn 2 movement, the BMPs have smashed through the hulking remains of the destroyed BMP, move forward to close with those 113s. The main gun should make short work out of at least 1 or 2 of them, they're hoping, as they continue to move forward. On the right flank, the T-72s have moved up another 10 inches with the American infantry in their tank sights. Back here, the tank commander, battalion commanders decide to stay in place for a better shot and also wait for the rest of the formation to arrive so he can lead them forward to victory. On the left flank, Soviet infantry, as you might expect, has remained in place in their foxholes. They're content to stay there until some sort of attack is mounted against them. Soviet tanks opened up with their machine guns and tore through the American lines, despite them being gone to ground and concealed since they haven't moved yet during the game, killing 1 Dragon team and 2 fire teams. The tank battalion commander managed to line up a shot through that gap, destroying one of the 113s, and while the BMP-2s did not exactly perform as well as expected, they did manage to bail out one of the 113s, putting that unit in a bad place for morale. So we will roll to see if they stick around. The 113 platoon commander has made his morale check on a 5-up. He needed a 4, so they are staying around. But the Soviets have made good progress here. They have not lost very much other than 1 BMP-2 at this point, but have put a stick on the Americans. We'll see if the Americans can recover during their turn. During the American 2 turn startup set, the 113 has managed to free itself of the bogged down condition, but the crew that was bailed out remains bailed out, staring down at the BMP-2s heading towards it. They do not want to get back into that vehicle right now. Next up is the movement phase. The Americans opted not to move in their turn 2, instead focusing on opening it up with a bunch of firepower, starting with the 50 caliber machine guns. They did manage to, once again, do enough damage to make that crew in the back take a check, but they made their morale check and they remained bailed out, but they did not run away at this point. While the commander's 113 did manage to use his 50 cal to create a veil, blowing up one of the BMPs after it failed its pretty easy armor check. Rolled a 1, and then the firepower check for the 50 cal did go through this time. Dragon missile team missed, but his partner over there with the Law, within 12 inches, did manage to destroy that second BMP with another good 5 up. So the American right flank is holding, but unfortunately, the combined power of the artillery and this lone Dragon team managed to do 0 damage to the T-72s. The 119s at a serious, 109s at a serious disadvantage over here against the Soviet armor, and they did manage to hit the T-72, but it wasn't able to do any sort of damage to its top armor. If it was 119s, it'd even be worse with those 105mm shells. But regardless, Soviet tanks continue to roll along. We do need a morale check for this particular BMP back there that's bailed out. They are no longer in good order. Need a 3 or higher. We have gotten a 4 there. So the Soviets will remain on the board with their one remaining BMP-2. It's yet to be seen whether or not he will decide to get back in his vehicle. Won't blame him if he didn't. So on to Soviet turn 3. Soviet BMP-2 did remount their vehicle in the starting phase of Soviet turn 3, but unfortunately no reserves have come in for the Soviets in this first attempt. So they will have to make do with what they have on the table. During the movement phase, that BMP has stayed still, so it gets the full 3 shots, hopefully doing a little bit better against the American 113s, who have already been hurt badly by the combined fire of the Soviet armed forces. Over here on the right, the tanks have moved up. We're going to have 1 shot on the right into the 109s, while everyone else is going to focus on the American infantry in the tree line, hoping to really knock them out so they can swarm around the American objective before American reinforcements come on the board. And of course, the platoon has stayed in place. So on to the shooting phase next. It was a brutal round of Soviet gunnery as the tank on the far right edge of their column managed to destroy one of the 109s with a well-placed shot. The 3 other T-72s opened up with machine guns, doing 2 hits against the large infantry team on the left and 1 against the Dragon. The Dragon did make his 3-up save, but the American infantry are definitely hurting now and are probably facing a Soviet assault. The tank commander missed his shot against the commander's 113, but possibly being put in for a award, Hero of the Soviet Union. Who knows? This BMP managed to destroy 2 of the remaining 3 American 113s, doing 2 hits on the front one, made both firepower checks, and 1 hit on the back one, made that firepower check 2, which is impressive because it was a 5-up. So the American light armored vehicles are now in trouble as they will need to make another morale check. Let's see how they do with the 1 remaining. They've rolled a 1, so they are going to beat feet and leave, or in this case, roll track and leave. So, good turn for the Soviets. Americans need to do something in order to contest that right there. Actually, the turn's not over because the Soviets are probably going to charge, so we'll be back. Soviet armor continues to roll, this time charging into the American Dragon team. Unfortunately, there wasn't much the American Dragon team could do about it. Even though the Soviets flubbed their first roll, the Dragon team did make his counterattack roll and try to drive the Soviets off through sheer willpower. Unfortunately, the Soviets also made their counterattack roll and managed to destroy it in the second turn of Soviet attacks. After that, the 2 tanks moved forward 4 inches to make sure they have that objective. So it's going to be critical that the Americans have some reinforcements come on now. Time is short for their chances.
Lancaster Boulevard.
In the starting phase, the American battalion commanders received word that they will not be receiving reinforcements this round. So his men will have to do this themselves. They must get within 3 inches of the objective, drive the Soviets off if possible, but at least prevent a victory at this point. It is a hard get for the Americans. They have not put any pressure on the Soviets. It's all been Soviets at this point. Really, the destruction of the American observer spoiled the American chances to stop the Soviets in the center board there. And now it is a move of desperation from the American commander to see what they can do. In a move of desperation, one American 109 has smashed through the trees there in order to get a rear armor shot against these T-72s. His buddy, though, unfortunately bogged down on the tree line there. Over here, the unit leader did manage to get off a blitz move order to his guys, letting the Dragon missile team also having a shot at the Soviet tanks. So we'll see if we can't push some damage on these Soviets here in American turn 3. The Americans, trying desperately not to go quietly into the night, opened up with the Dragon missile system, managing to bail out this T-72. Unfortunately, while it did go through the armor, they failed their firepower check of a 3-up. Better luck with the 109, with the armor penetration value of 15 and not being a heat round. It went straight through the Soviet T-72 side armor of an 8. And then with a 1+ firepower check, there was nothing the Soviet tank crew could do to save themselves. But, as you can see right now, the Soviets are controlling the American objective. They will win this when they check victory conditions at the start of Soviet turn 4. So, really nice to play Team Yankee again. More videos to come. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you like, and see you back soon.